Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. I am back again with yet again another Chandra Fire of Kaladesh EDH design. I know I've been offline for quite some time. I am still adjusting to living with another person, so I don't have as much solitary time as I used to where I could develop these videos. But anyways, let's get back to this. If you are unfamiliar with my other videos, I have run Chandra in a multitude of designs, from a group Huggish, a multiplayer Big X spell, a creature aggro design. I've been digging around for some kind of combo potential using her tap ability in like Umbral Mantle or the Paradise Mantle. But for the current design I'm running, it is more of a kind of a 1v1 setup. A spell flinger setup that actually doesn't run any creatures. So let me go through the deck that I'm currently running, and I'll show you this giant stack of sideboard-ish cards that I'm tinkering with, just things to experiment with. In Chandra's, or my previous videos, I was talking about Chandra's converted mana cost as a flip card. I had incorrectly spoken. As someone who has never actually played Master of the Wild Hunt or the other flip Garuk, I did not know that a flipped form actually has a converted mana cost of 0. So pardon for that, but let's get through this one. Again, she is a 3 mana, 1 red for a human shaman 2/2 legendary creature. Whenever I cast a red thing, she untaps. And I can tap her to do 1 damage to a opponent. Well, technically target player, I guess I could target myself. But if she is to do a cumulative of 3 damage in 1 single turn to anything, like just 2 to a creature, 1 to a player, combat, flip, whatever, I have to actually exile her. And then she comes in as a planeswalker starting at 4 loyalty. Her +1 is to shock a player, her -2 is to shock an opponent, and her -7 is to do 6 damage to each opponent, and everyone dealt damage that way gets an emblem that says on their upkeep they take 3 damage. Even if I were to die and be removed from the game, the emblem stays because it belongs to that player. Again, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about her. In multiplayer EDH, I mean, she just does not have a good impact. In a 1v1 design, she's doing better for me. I do not play French rules 1v1. I am still playing a 40 life format. So this is kind of an uphill battle. But this deck is actually trying to use her burn as a win condition, getting to that emblem and then doing something stupid. So let's flip her over here. There's a few tricks in the deck to help flip her, even if the board state looks unfavorable to attack. But this is essentially a spell slinger deck and not a big X spell deck like one of my earlier videos. There's a lot of target removal, target singleton small spells that do incremental damage. And from what I've played, this deck actually has a fairly good win rate against different deck archetypes. Something like in the zombie control deck, this will just run over. Big creature strategies like a Maelstrom Wonder deck has also run over me. So this is not a one deck to rule them all. It has great matchups and it has terrible matchups. But let me show you what I'm running now and also the alternative cards. So as a semi-control-ish Spellslinger deck, 33 cards in this deck are instances. Like literally a third of the deck can be played at instant speed. There's a lot of utility creature and or player burn spells. In mana order we have a Lightning Bolt, a Magma Spray, which is good at exiling, a Dead, which is essentially shock to a creature, or a Bounce. This is actually a fairly funny card to play with. A Magma Jet. This has actually become like a sinkhole for my promo cards. Incinerate, because it has Chandra on the artwork. A Sudden Shock, which really wish it did 3 damage and not 2. Carbonize. I love, again, the cards that exile a creature, getting rid of a problematic thing so it does not return. This is the best out of the 3 coming up. They all cost 3 and they all do 3 damage. This one, although has a cannot be regenerate clause. Carbonize, Yamabushi's Flame, and Annihilating Fire. 3 mana, 3 damage, kind of sucky. It's like 2 more for a Lightning Bolt. But that exile effect is fantastic. We do have a Char. Why not? Stagger Shock is fantastic because it is essentially 2 shocks put together. I can toss it out at the end of turn and they get the rebound immediately. Chandra's Outrage, 4 damage to a creature. There's a nice sweet spot of 4 toughness and a lot of popular creature effects in EDH. So this one actually made the cut. 4 mana, this is probably one of the worst spells in this deck. 4 mana is a lot for an instant. 2 extra damage to an opponent doesn't actually seem like a lot either, but this actually is on curve with Chandra. Toss her out on turn 2, declare her as an attacker, get this off and remove a creature, get 2 extra damage off and chains them together. Same thing, exiling graveyards is really good. Volcanic Fallout, I love this card. I'm playing this in my Modern Burn deck as a 2-of over Pyroclasm, because in my Modern Burn deck I'm running no creatures. But this actually adds 2 extra damage to each player as well. The cannot be countered is a fantastic effect to have here. Inferno is a little expensive, it is 7. The reason it's in here is because, again, it's an instant. It is 6 to all creatures and players. It is one of the better board wipes we have. Although Starstorm sitting right next to it is a little tricky. The trick there is this hits players. That's why it's worth keeping. But Starstorm also, if I were to pay like 7 mana, this would do 5 to each creature. But I can cycle this if it is a dead draw. I don't like a lot of high mana cost spells in here unless they are good tempo, like destroying a land and a creature. This is another instant that could hit a creature or a land. There's a few of these actually, a lot of the actually mono red cards that actually destroy a creature. Sadly, they are like sorcery speed. The only instant ones are the only ones I felt were actually worth running. Chaos Warp, of course. Shattering Pulse, I actually just took it into the Forge, or into the core, was the last card that made a cut here. But we have 3 things for destroying artifacts. And Smash, a nice one that actually cantrips. Price of Progress is a potential win condition in late games, although this deck is not trying to get to late game states. Sudden Impact, same thing. This could literally just be a big Pash 7 plus damage. Reverberate and Increasing Vengeance and Reiterate all made the cut essentially so I can get big effects off of the small spells I have. Wild Ricochet did not because it cost too much mana. And I do have my Active Treason effects, Active Aggression, Grab the Reins, and Word of Sizing, whatever. I like calling it Word of Sizing because it irritates a friend of mine. It is called Word of Seizing. Then we have these 3 cards are actually here just to dick around with Chandra, to help her flip in combat. She is a 2/2. The quickest way to get her to flip is to attack for 2, cast a single spell, and then ping. So, if we are in an unplayable state, we can't get 2 damage off, then Brute Force is actually essentially a giant growth, gets that extra damage off. And it is the red spell that will untap her. This will make her trade or kill a 4/4 or possibly trade with a 5/5 or whatever need be. Fury Charm made the cut because it gives her +1/+1 and trample. So this means that she won't trade with a Solemn Simulacrum. This has other utility, as in I can destroy an artifact as well. And then the final one is another cantrip, where again, if there's a clear board, I can just use this as an X burn spell and draw a card, using Chandra as the sole creature to attack with. So that's all instances. Let's go on to the sorceries. There is not that many. They have to be fairly important if they were essentially left in the deck. We have another exile spell for creatures. I just contradicted myself. This is not a very good card. Scent of Cinder. This made it in here because I've had this like comic book promo one for a decade. This is not a good card unless you're running something like what's the card where you draw your deck? Whatever that 12 mana costing blue card is. Enter the Infinite. This is 2 mana to reveal any number of red cards from your hand, and you can burn a creature or player for X, where X is the number of cards revealed that way. In a burn deck, you typically don't have a big hand. And this is a sorcery, so that's the second bad thing about this. But in this deck, I wanted to find a place for this. Literally, it's been sitting in my binder for a decade. The art on this alternate thing is fantastic. If you're running something like Izzet and you have a Enter the Infinite in your deck and a lot of red spells, I guess this could be a win condition. We have Flames of the Firebrand and Arc Lighting. Same exact card essentially. One has tits, one has really cool artwork from the Arena series. Anger of the Gods for more exile. Exquisite Firecraft, because why not? The cannot be countered is actually a fairly nice thing against specific matchups. Into the Maw of Hell is another creature and land destruction, a 2-for-1. Recoup is probably going to be the next card that gets cut. As you're seeing, there's not a lot of sorceries, and I typically need to be using my mana very efficiently, so I don't want to tap out on my turn. I'd rather be doing things on the opponent's turn. This only gets sorceries back. Vandal Blast is our last artifact destruction. I lied. Pillage is our last artifact destruction, which could also hit a land. Again, it's a 3 mana costing one. Very similarly, Aftershock. It could destroy a creature, artifact, or land. It bolts me, but still it has a 3 if. So good utility card. Ruination will hit all non-basics. Overmaster is one of my old goody favy cards. It's another mono red cantrip. It just means the next instant or sorcery spell I cast can't be countered. Really wish this was an instant, and it has not aged super well. I don't see it in a lot of decks anymore. I mean, I shoved this right back in Latoya when I rebuilt her again. But 1 mana cantrip in red, really good. Act on Impulse is another card that may not last the cut much longer because I don't really have a lot of extra mana to spend when casting this. And Mizzix's Mastery is actually the new win condition. When this deck was being designed, I had another card that was the win condition set up, and I'll show you that when I get to the sideboard. But this is the new one. Essentially, it gives me the chance to rebuy a spell in my graveyard. Or for 8 mana, I can rebuy all of the spells. And that's a gigantic chunk of burn spells to rebuy. So this is essentially the win condition, although from playtesting, it is overkill. By the time, it's either overkill or I'm too dead, too fast. Because with all that burn and her, if I can keep her alive long enough to get the emblem and all that burn effects and keeping creatures alive from killing me, there's a very good high rate of winning. But so far this has made some very disgusting plays. Let's get the last bit of the permanence back out. There's not a lot of permanence in this design. Again, I wanted very little things for the opponent to actually interact with as I was burning up their board. Seal of Fire, fun little troll card, is a shock anytime I need it after I cast it. Love this on turn 1. Outpost Siege is another card draw effect. Not a very fast one, but in our colors there's just not a lot for us to actually work with. Repercussions is a sort of damage doubler with a lot of effects. And we have the other 2 damage doublers in here. And then we have Chandra Pyromaster for card draw. There was a leaked or slash spoiler whatever of the new Chandra coming from the second Battle for Zendikar block. A 6 drop that has a better Wheel of a Fortune effect where you get +1. I'm hoping that is a legitimate card. 6 is a lot of mana, but for that effect, especially in a deck wanting to dick around with this, that seems really good. Soul Ring and Wafer's Bauble are the only artifact accelerant. The curve on this deck is very low. Expedition Map to get our Valakut. Top, for reasons. Sword of the Animist. This is another very odd inclusion. What I need to get for this deck is a Vesuva and a Thespian Stage to go with my Valakut. I also plan on eventually getting more shock land or fetch lands, so I can go on a Valakut package, essentially focusing entirely on that. Since I am trying to make this a 1v1 design, that route, again, just be very hard to deal with, and there's less opponents to destroy my Valakut. So this actually makes me not want to flip Chandra, because I am getting card advantage in mono red. And that's actually just a lot better than sometimes flipping the Chandra. It's going to be a meta call depending on the opponent, but Chandra's the only creature. This may be a dead draw very late in game, but it's also very good card advantage if it works. Rings for Chandras, Pyromancer's Gauntlet for Chandra, and the goggles for the disgusting amount of spells I have. This, I really wish this didn't cost 5. The fact that this costs so much means it's a late game quote-unquote bomb, although it typically immediately gets destroyed. This is such an obvious threat. Like, it's given me some nice effects. I've seen some standard decks that run this and a lot of really fun interactions, but so far I'm just not been impressed. Even with big X spells, when I tried it out there, it just wasn't good enough. 5 mana is too expensive for what this effect gives you. Let's go on to the lands. There are 37 lands currently in the deck. So currently the ones that I know I want to keep, Mirrored Landscape is good slow advantage. Thawing Glaciers is great, and there's the Valakut. The 2 lands I plan on replacing immediately, or as soon as I can, is this one will be a Vesuva, and this one will become a Thespian Stage. And then I'll just go ahead and pack in about 7 or so fetch lands. The rest of these are all the fancy Time Spiral Mountains. Let me show you what cards I have been playing around with, testing and whatnot, removing just cards that were not good enough, or something that I just may need to go back to or revisit. Pulse of the Forge, in theory, would have been good. The issue is if I'm doing what the deck wants to do, the opponent will be losing life very fast, so this will end up not coming back to hand. It will be a one-time shot for damage. This is also a very expensive spell to do 5 damage to a creature. 5 damage to a singleton creature is great. The scry is great. Scrying on an instant spell, this is the issue I have. I'd rather do this on the opponent's turn, but then I lose the scry. So why am I then... It's just such a... I don't know. Into the Core is the last card that came out from Artifact Hate. There's just too much in the deck. Impact Resonance is a very situational card. Like, I am trying to keep creatures off the board. This involves me taking a hit to be useful. Same thing, just too slow. Did not actually end up needing it against anyone I've played so far. Same thing, another X spell. It is an instant. It's nice. It's like a potentially souped-up version of Searing Blaze if you're spending a lot of mana. I do not want a big mana sink in this deck like a lot of X spells. So far has not needed this card. Like, this is such a staple card in almost all my mono red decks. I have so far not needed this, so it's actually come out. This is the old win condition before Mizzix's Mastery was it. What I would try to do is ramp really hard up to this. I would in some time get Chandra flipped or get Chandra into play and then protect her and then resolve this. This exiles creatures, artifacts, lands from the battlefield and your hand and your graveyard. So enchantments and planeswalkers are left alone. So if Chandra is not immediately dealt with, she will then put everyone on a very quick clock. This is actually the reason I chose to design this as a 1v1, because when I was doing this in multiplayer, made for some very pissed off opponents. There are other effects you could run too, like Wildfire, Destructive Force, the burn spells that do X, like a specific amount of damage to creatures and destroy everyone sacks a specific amount of lands, like Burning of Zingai is the old one from Portal that got a reprint in this set here. But this is the best one out of them all because it hits graveyards and hands. Exiling is better than destroying. And if they can't deal with Chandra, you just win. There's the Crucible. Once I get a better fetch package, this will go in there. This was in there originally, since I have a large number of spells. The issue is a lot of my spells cost 1 to 2 mana, and the 2 mana may be red-red, so it's not actually been useful. This will... I was thinking about getting another Nerval's Disc, I think. I forgot. I think this just came out because I wanted less permanence, and this actually killed Chandra. Nerval's Disc would be good, since that does not hit Planeswalker. But that's actually my current Chandra list. Yeah, this is yet again another Chandra list. I don't know why I keep constructing around this one singleton card in this format. Playing 1v1, she has had a much better win rate than I have in multiplayer games. The impact in a 40 life format is still abysmal. But yeah, that's really all I can say about her. I am hoping that there are new techie spells and better spells and fun promo foily nonsense I can put in here of a low mana curve, because this is a very fun deck to play. But of course, against specific matchups, I do get steamrolled. Big creature strategies, attrition. Well, attrition really doesn't get me, but big creature strategies do. Massive life gain from Lohoro, can't really deal with that. But this is a very fun deck. I've actually probably enjoyed this just about as much as my big X-Spell variant, if not maybe a little bit more. But yeah, I'm just going to keep on playing with Chandra. I know she's not ideal, but I'm going to keep on giving it a go. If you have any feedback or ideas, definitely let me know. I am always welcome.